your eyes, know yourself, realize, understand and empathize. We could learn to fill the world with love.
Good morning, everyone. I am Marianne Cosgrove. I'm CEO of Humanists Australia, coming to you today from the land of the Ngunnawal and Ngambri people. I acknowledge and pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded. With us today, we have our creative director, Brian, our events coordinator, and one of our board directors, Allan, climate researcher, Dr. David Cosgrove, and our special guest today is Kelly, also known as Godless Granny. Kelly is coming to us from Alabama in the United States. She is a retired attorney. For 42 years, she was living the Christian faith, but now is a humanist and has been running her YouTube channel, Godless Granny, for some time now. Welcome, Kelly.
Thank you for having me.
So we're here to talk today about the rise of Trumpism in the United States and whether something similar could happen here in Australia. Kelly, can you tell us about your experience of Trumpism?
I recognized the danger of Donald Trump very early, even back in his 2016 campaign. And I was still a believer back then. I had conversations with my aunt. Now, my uncle is a professor of political science or I should say he was a professor of political science at the University of Pennsylvania. He's long since retired. He's actually 100 years old now. And so I was talking with my aunt and uncle about what was going on, and I was looking at what he was saying he wanted to do, and I found it absolutely terrifying. And my aunt and uncle were both saying, "Oh, he'll never win. He'll never win. The only thing he's running on is his celebrity. He'll never win." I wasn't so sure, and part of it was because I knew he had two things going for him. One was the celebrity, and the other was he had a lot of financial backing. Mm-hmm. And those two things are extremely powerful. And so, he made a statement in his first campaign, which was very true. He said, "I could go and shoot someone in the streets of New York and people would still vote for me." And he was right.
It's an extraordinary claim to make, but he's done things that are almost as bad, and people have stood by him the entire time.
Exactly.
Yeah, he still is, isn't he? Getting away with so much. Look, I guess we do want to delve into all of that stuff, and there is lots to talk about. But I wanted to initially. We've already spoken about this, Gigi, but just so that people know your story as far as going from being a Christian to an atheist, that journey and how that happened, and then doing your channel and becoming an activist.
Okay. I was originally raised Catholic only as a very young child, and my parents left the Catholic Church when I was 7. And my father always identified as a humanist after that. And so, I was mostly raised secular. But as a teenager, I went through an existential crisis, and I was very much a loner. I had no close friends. I had plenty of casual friends, but I had no close friends. And so I never shared what I was going through with anyone. And so when someone came and offered me what they said was a solution to this existential crisis, I went for it, which was Christianity. And I thought I had found the answer when, in fact, I had not. And I did not realize that, nor did I realize how much damage the faith had done to me until decades later. But Yeah, the rise of Trumpism was a part of the story. It was a small part of the story, but this part of the story I don't tell an awful lot. Is I watched in my church after Trump was elected what was going on, and I became more and more alienated from the people of the church because I saw the racism that was now outwardly expressed, and just open hatred for people. And my husband is still a believer, but he's also a very left-leaning person, and he was as disgusted by it as I was. And so we ended up leaving the church and finding another church that was much more politically neutral, where people just simply didn't talk about politics that much. And while I was at that church, I reasoned my way into the divine hiddenness problem. And I didn't even realize that that's what I had done until about, a year or so after I was an atheist, when a philosopher was listening to my story, and I heard his comment on my story, which was, oh, she discovered the divine hiddenness problem. She just doesn't have the vocabulary. And so
I think probably some of our viewers also won't have the vocabulary for that. Maybe you could explain what that is for our viewers, please, Kelly.
Absolutely. Thank you. The divine hiddenness problem says, the Bible claims that God wants everyone to know him. And yet and then it also claims that God is all powerful. He has the ability to make that happen. It claims that he's all knowing. He knows exactly what everyone needs to know in order to know him. So why doesn't everyone know him? And it's not just that everyone doesn't know him. The majority of the people don't know him. And so I was reflecting on the conversion of the Apostle Paul, and I said, well, God came down and personally told Paul exactly what he needed to know in order to know him. Why doesn't he do that for everyone? And so if he can't do that, then he's not all powerful. If he can, but he doesn't know what to do, then he's not omniscient. And if he can and he knows what to do, but he refuses to do it, then he's not all loving. And so no matter which way I turned, the characteristics I was told that my God had did not reflect with reality.
Yeah.
So at that point, I pivoted to a form of universalism. And what I decided was that upon death, every person will meet personally face to face with God, and God will lay all his cards on the table and say, this is who I am. This is what I'm all about. Would you like to live with me or not? And that's the idea that I came up with. But I had identified decades earlier that the base foundation of my faith, the bedrock of my faith, was that the Bible was the complete inerrant word of God. And in 2019, my son told me, Mom, Noah's flood didn't happen. And I said, oh, come on, no. Yes, it did. Yes, it did. And my son said, well, Mom, for one thing, the poop on the ark would have killed them all. And so I looked it up online, and I found 3 different websites that confirmed what my son was telling me. And then my son showed me a video of Ark protests 2019. And on it, I saw Aaron Ra arguing with a man and saying, we know the flood didn't happen. Not just that it couldn't happen, but that it didn't happen. We know this from geology, biology, history. And the moment he said history, I suddenly realized that he was right. And not only was he right, but I'd known it all along, because no time in any history class have I ever taken where the teacher or professor said, okay, and then all the people were wiped out and a group of Babylonians came in a couple hundred years later and started to resettle the land. It didn't happen. And so now that my faith no longer had a bedrock, it just, in a matter of seconds, it just completely collapsed.
So it was Aaron Ra that
It was Aaron Ra that said that. Yes.
Yeah, inspired you in that way. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Aaron Ra.
No.
You are, Les?
A little bit. I've
Yeah,
seen
yeah,
some clips of him.
Yeah, he's quite a striking figure. If you've seen him, you won't forget.
I always wonder what he would look like with short hair.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to see that anytime soon. I've actually had dealings with Aaron Ra as well. Done some musical things, and I've had a couple of chats with him, and he's a lovely guy as well. Very much into heavy metal music. He looks how he is in real life, like that. That's what he likes. But yeah, it's interesting that that's who sort of started you off in that direction. And so, what about your own activism? Going with
my own activism started quite quickly after that. I became extremely thirsty for knowledge right away, and one of the first things I realized is that I had shackled my mind for so long. I had been of the mindset that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. If a person doesn't know God, then they have nothing to say that is worth learning about. And so I had this huge gap from the time I graduated college in 1982 until this time, which was 2019, in which I'd learned virtually nothing that wasn't religious. And so I suddenly realized that there was a whole world of knowledge out there in biology, geology, and so many other topics. So I started just drinking in YouTube, and especially atheist YouTube, learning about what the atheist position is all about, learning that that the flood didn't happen was just the tip of the iceberg. There was so much more. And one of the things that I watched was Shannon Q, and on her channel, she was saying, we don't have enough female atheist voices. We need more female atheist voices. And I said, well, I'm just sitting here crocheting. I guess I could start a YouTube channel. The only thing that's kind of funny is now I spend so much time on YouTube, I don't have time to crochet anymore.
That's a shame.
Can you tell me about your friends and neighbors who were in the thrall of the church like that? What's their relationship with Trump?
Okay, in the church that we left, there were a lot of people that were very into Trump. And I think my husband hit the nail on the head when he said Trump gave them permission to say the things that they were already thinking. They were already feeling that they didn't want the migrants here and that they didn't want colored people here. This is our white man's space, but you couldn't say that. It wasn't politically correct. And Trump made it politically correct for them to voice their opinions, and they found that liberating. But unfortunately, they are not seeing the harm that they're doing. They cannot see that they're hurting people by doing that. And when you try to show them, they just don't care and they don't want to hear about it. And it's truly heartbreaking. I don't know how to reach these people.
Can I just bring up, because we have Limited Light in the chat and is just talking, I'm saying about the rise of fascism in the US, and he's just saying that, or they, sorry, not sure, they're not really aware of any rise of fascism in the US. So I've just responded in the comments and mentioned something about the situation with immigrants and how they're being taken to prison camps and places around that. Now, that seems very fascist to me. So that's my position on that. What do you think about that, Kelly? How would you respond? What do you think about the situation? Is fascism on the rise in the US?
I don't know. I really don't know. There's no question that authoritarianism is on the rise. But whether it's fascism or not, I don't know.
Yep.
I would characterize it as we don't know clearly the percentages, which were
Problem with your internet
Oh,
again, Marianne. David's frozen there.
Yep, looks like we've lost him.
Probably best just to jump out, David. Oh, you probably can't hear me, but and then come back in like what Les did before and like what you did, Marianne.
You can put it in the private chat and he'll see it.
Yeah, good point. See, you're an expert. You're very experienced. Yeah, look, my position on that, I'll just refer to a show that I watch quite regularly with Kyle Kalinske, Secular Talk. He's someone that I very much trust to tell the truth, always comes with facts, always backs things up with facts, is compassionate and caring. So I take his word for it. And he seems to be very much in come from the position of fascism is very much on the rise, and that the MAGA movement is essentially a fascist movement. Maybe not, they might be lacking awareness that that's what they're doing, but that's what it appears. It certainly looks like that from over here.
I think go ahead, Marianne.
I think what Limited Light was trying to say is that it's not that more numbers of people are becoming fascists. It's that there are enough people who are not getting involved, allow the people who have those authoritarian leanings to take control and not put them in place. Limited Light says that's the opposite of what they said. I think we need a little bit more clarification from you, please, Limited Light.
Yeah, we've got a few comments there in the chat. So their explanation.
Well, totalitarianism started in Germany when Hitler banned all of the opposition parties and allowed him to bring in his full fascist agenda. And I do think that if Trump had his way, we already see those leanings where he only wants to allow the press that is in his favor. And he talks about locking up, lock up Hillary Clinton. That was his mantra for a long time. So I think without a doubt, if he had the power and he had the public on his side, he literally would lock up his political opponents. So I would call it maybe not fascism, but proto-fascism. He's laying the groundwork for a totalitarian regime, a Christian nationalist totalitarian regime.
David's back with us now. You were about to say something earlier, David.
Yes, before my computer crashed and I had to reboot. I was saying it isn't necessarily numbers of people growing. It's more that the political environment now has enabled authoritarianism bordering fascism, more power and more say over the society than previously. Yeah, so maybe their numbers aren't rising, but certainly the political environment is now more favouring that authoritarian bent.
So it could potentially become full-blown fascism. I mean, that's how fascism starts. It's not all of a sudden there, because people are going to rebel against it if you throw it in their face like that. But if you make subtle moves in different directions to try and lead it towards that, it happens more subtly and catches people unaware, I guess, up to a point. And you garner support as well.
Project 2025 is the main push behind Trump. There are very powerful organizations that are pushing for Project 2025, and they are very much responsible for helping Trump rise to power, and he's well aware of that. And so he helps push their agenda. Now, I don't necessarily think their agenda is a fascist agenda. I don't know, but it's primarily a Christian nationalist agenda. And if they win, Christianity may be the official religion of the United States. Homosexuality will be outlawed. Same-sex marriages will be outlawed. Some even fear that they may even ban interracial marriages.
Yeah. And talking of that, you have a transgender child, Robin, transgender son. Now, Alabama's a red state.
Yes.
Yes. So talking about the Christian nationalism and the issue they have with the LGBTQ plus community as a whole, how is that having a personal effect?
There's actually not as much hostility as a lot of people would think. There are pockets where the hostility is really bad. And if you stay away from those pockets, you'll do fine. Robin is in Auburn, which is not too bad.
Right.
Every now and then he runs into somebody who has no idea that he's transgender. And like there was a guy at work that said to him, "Did you know that there's someone at Walmart that's transgender?"
Oh, painful.
And not only is Robin transgender, but one of Robin's coworkers is transgender, and another one of Robin's coworkers is non-binary. And it's a very friendly environment. And it's not at all unusual where Robin lives. There's only the occasional person that gets upset about it. They are not as powerful as people think they are. Because Limited Light is right that the real problem is apathy. The people who have no problem with the transgender people aren't voting. And because they're not voting, their voice isn't being heard. And so those rights are getting trounced. Robin is afraid. Robin changed his sex on his driver's license, and that may become a crime. He may have to change it back. Robin has not renewed his passport. So his driver's license and his passport don't agree on his sex. Robin also has only transitioned socially. So Robin feels very safe in being able to transition back.
If it got to that point.
If it got to that point, yeah, because all he has to do is stop saying he's male, and he presents so neutrally that he can pass for either one.
Right. It's frightening that it should have to be like that, though, is it? That he would even just be considering the possibility of having to do that. He wants to express himself as who he is, and to even consider that you might have to fake.
My biggest fear is that Trump is going to find some way to prevent the next election.
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to happen. I really don't. But I think he's going to try.
It's a very big step. Kelly, a lot of what we're seeing in Australia is about immigrants being rounded up and sent to places which are essentially concentration camps, Alligator, Alcatraz, and they're looking at reopening the real Alcatraz, although that's incredibly impractical. Have you seen much evidence of that firsthand in your neighborhood?
I have not, but I don't go out much. I'm inside my house most of the time. I walk around outside in my neighborhood, but I don't go into, well, I do go into the city for, to go to court I also work as a CASA, a court appointed special advocate. But I did personally have a immigrant family that I worked with in my CASA work, but their case closed 2 years ago, and I don't know how they are doing. The oldest it was a very unusual situation. It was a very large family. The parents were both convicted of criminal child abuse, and they were deported. And this was before Trump was even in power. They were deported. And the oldest brother was old enough that he took custody of the rest of the kids. But the oldest brother was on DACA. And I don't know if...
The Dreamers scheme, right?
Yes. I don't know if DACA is still in place. I don't know if he could be deported. And if he was deported, I don't know what would happen to the rest of the children. But I've lost touch with them, and I can't find them, and I don't know how they are doing.
Yeah, no, it's frightening. We've had the thing coming up. I don't know if you've heard about it, but with the Epstein files over there with Trump, and the impression that I get is that that could be something that potentially creates. His numbers are dropping. His support is dropping. Popularity quite rapidly from what I can see. And could that be the thing that maybe just tips it over the edge?
It's possible. I was really pleased that Trump called his own supporters stupid.
Yeah. So yeah, I saw that.
Well,
let's start dividing that base up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So there are a number of differences in the way that politics works between Australia and the US, and I think those differences give me a lot of hope. One of the things is that voting is compulsory here in Australia, and what that means is that politicians don't have to get people angry to get them to vote, and so we can have more nuanced discussions about policy and take that to the polls rather than having to whip up a frenzy in people to just even get them out to vote. I'm interested in David's perspective on this difference and other differences that mean we're less likely to see a figure like Trump take power here.
Yes, because this feeds a bit into how apathy was raised. And apathy, voter apathy is a problem. Like in 1930s Germany, Nazism had very little support. It was mostly apathy. Oh, yeah, it doesn't really matter about the rise of this. And the political establishment decided, oh, it doesn't really matter. We can control him. He can be a useful puppet. So there wasn't enough pushback on that early authoritarian movement, even though it had very little public support. And it's probably a bit the same in the US. The proportion of the population that really would support an authoritarian leader is probably quite small. It's probably less than 10% of the US population. But somehow that 10% have got what they wanted by being more mobilized, more invested. They have essentially imposed this particular movement in political history on the rest of America.
And they seem to have done that largely in connection with the Christian right, as Kelly was alluding to her church
and that's
group.
partly been deliberate. In the 1970s, there was a lot of research on, we're losing sway for our particular movement, which is looking after the billionaires. So there was a lot of money flooding in, and they saw that there was advantages being linked to conservative type areas of the church, because those people were often more invested, and there were particular ways they could sway their opinions, particularly because it became important to have this anti-science point of view. You don't actually want voters questioning things. You don't want voters who are interested in becoming informed and learning about the topics. If you are, say, a political class who are wanting everyone to vote against their interests. So there was this overlap in all the money flowing in from the billionaires wanting a voting public that is less informed and less likely to say, "Oh, I don't want to vote for that because they're taking all these resources." So
Absolutely.
those movements were deliberate and driven by research, and others just happened through the movements in culture.
Absolutely. The day after Trump was reelected, the first post I saw from Matt Walsh, and if you're not familiar with Matt Walsh, he's with the Daily Wire, which is an ultra-right conservative, allegedly news media, but it's really more entertainment than it is media.
Yes.
Yeah, he's the one that made the video, "What is a Woman?"
Yeah.
Well, anyway, his tweet the day after Trump was elected was, "Look at how Trump was elected primarily by uneducated people. It just goes to show you that education is not of value." And I just absolutely facepalmed. No. Because he got elected by uneducated people is not an indication that people don't need to be educated.
I think there's been a deliberate squashing of education by the Republicans.
No question.
They attack the Department of Education.
Well, not only that, the way they've defunded science programs. The funding has been just absolutely cut to the bone for any kind of scientific research in this country. We're going to see a serious brain drain over the next few years because scientists can't get research grant money. They have to go to other countries to go get that now.
I think that's another area in which Australia is very different from the US. One thing about the US is public education is funded by the local area in which the school resides, so that areas with fewer resources have poorer education, and that perpetuates the lower educational standards and the lower income of those areas down through the generations.
This is primarily in the universities.
The issue that you were talking about.
The loss of research money is in the universities.
Yes. But I think that poorer education generally has an impact down through the generations in terms of people growing up not knowing how to find things out for themselves, how to ask the right questions, to uncover.
To apply critical thinking and to try and gather knowledge and learn and understand things.
Trump did the graduation address at the University of Alabama this year, and he was addressing a group of people who just got degrees in engineering, and he suggested that they all get jobs working in manufacturing. And yeah, it was completely ridiculous.
And he's basically all the manufacturing and that is going overseas. Like there's no jobs for any people over there, is there? So that's the case, isn't it? Where really he's on about creating jobs, but is doing the opposite.
Well, actually, I mean, the US has grown rich by increasing its service economy. America is so wealthy largely because it is very good at delivering services. And so the manufacturing has tended to just move of its own course because America has gotten richer. So incomes have gone up. So it is dearer to manufacture goods in the US. To bring all that manufacturing back would not only be a long-term process, but you would have to create a whole swathe of low-cost jobs. And so the Trumpism is strange in this sense, because they're attacking those parts of the US economy that are actually the strongest, the parts that have bring in the most money. But the Trump administration is so focused on this trade surplus type issue, which is a reasonably small part of the actual wealth of the US. But it does get back a bit to the whole question of what's happening here. And I've often said that inequality is the root of all evil. And you end up with these sorts of problems in any societies where you get these enormous wealth disparities. You get large silos of wealth, and they want to hang on to that wealth, and so they start then influence the politics, so that you end up with a political system that then starts looking after that upper echelon of very wealthy people rather than their whole society. That happened. It has happened many times over. It happened in Rome. It'll happen in practically any place where you start getting those big wealth inequalities.
It is essentially always about class war, isn't it, really? And there's a long history of it. It's not like it's anything new. As you say, it's been happening since Roman times and probably before. From as soon as we started having civilizations, there was people that were richer and people that were poorer, and the richer people were trying to control the poorer people, I guess, and it's gotten to the point where it's just way out of control.
So both Australia and the US need a more egalitarian, equal set up, but we're not quite as bad as the US. But we do have wealth disparities in Australia. But the US is a very unequal society now. If you look at indicators like the indices that they do on difference between the top of the wealth pyramid and the people lower on the income spectrum, and something will have to be done to address that, I think, or we'll see more and more of these social problems cropping up.
Yeah. So Jason is asking, any predictions if America falls? And I guess what you're getting at is, as far as other world powers taking over, potentially China or somewhere like that. How do we think that would go? I mean, we don't know if that's what's going to happen, but empires do crash. That is a thing throughout history. And I guess if there was a time where America had the potential to lose its position, it's right now.
Mm-hmm.
What do we think? What do you think about that, Kelly?
I really don't know. One of the things that I think we've got to do is, once Trump is gone, we've got to regain the balance of power that we had under our Constitution. Right now, Trump has usurped a lot of Congress's power. Fortunately, the courts are fighting back, and the courts are keeping their own power for the most part. But Congress has got to take back its power. And we've got to put some kind of limit on executive orders. But if it does fall, what then? I don't know. I think Putin and Xi are both gonna swoop in and just start taking, whatever they want.
I think China is ascendant right now already. Particularly in the Asia Pacific region, where we are. And in fact, our Prime Minister is in China at the moment. At least he was. I think he's still in China, having talks with Chinese leadership, because it's a very important. It's very important for us to have engagement with China, such a strong power in our region. So I can see world alliances shifting. Les, you're going to say something?
Yeah, I wanted to ask Kelly about a couple of questions that Trump answered recently. I think it was during the bombing of the nuclear facilities in Iran recently, or maybe just after it. And he answered on two separate occasions, I think it was. He answered questions from journalists. And at the end, he was really bringing in God in a way which I hadn't seen for a long, long time. He said things like, thank you, God, and we really love you, God. There was, 2 or 3 sentences at the end where he really brought in God. And I'm wondering, A, whether you noticed that yourself, and B, the reasoning behind it. And I was thinking this might be his starting to... especially in international affairs, it's about the godly Christian America against the atheist countries like China and the heathen countries like Iran. So have you got any thoughts on that, Kelly?
I don't think Trump cares one whit about God.
Yeah.
Which
for actions.
Yeah, he doesn't attend church. Anytime he mentions God or the Bible, it's always for show. It's always some kind of a photo op or something for the press. You will never see him pray in private or anything like that. So I don't think he cares one whit about a God. I don't necessarily think he even believes in any gods. But he's also well aware of who put him in power and what his marching orders are. And there's no question that he nods to them from time to time. I also heard about an incident. I did not see it, but I just saw an article from the Friendly Atheist saying that Trump was at a recent event. It was a Christian event. And he asked, are there any atheists here? And when no one raised their hand, he says, of course, no one's going to raise their hand. Atheists would just hang their heads in shame because they know that, that's a ridiculous position to hold. And he was obviously playing to his Christian base because he never says those kinds of things in public.
Is it right? Sorry.
Well, Kelly was saying that he never says those things in public, but he does. He's when he's playing to his base, he'll say those things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right. Wasn't there a Trump Bible?
Yes. Yeah, there still is. And there was an Oklahoma governor that tried to make that Bible required in all of the schools in Oklahoma, but there were a couple of groups that filed suit against him saying, you can require certain curricula, but you can't require that they buy this particular Bible. And I didn't say it had to be this Bible. Well, no, but all of the specifications, the Trump Bible was the only one that met all the specifications that he required for the Bible to have.
That's another difference between Australia and the US. We're a lot less religious here. But, atheists and other non-religious people coming in. Do you recall what the number was?
Okay, Limited Light has corrected me. It wasn't the governor. It was Ryan Walters, the Secretary of Education. Sorry about that.
No problem, Kelly. Les, do you recall the statistics on the number of non-religious folks here according to the last census?
39%, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, so we're generally much less religious than the United States, and I think people tend to be better educated, I think, in the sense of not looking to be told the answers, but being a little bit more trained in critical thinking. Another difference that one of our viewers, Jason, raised a while ago is preferential voting. I think that has a huge impact on the political scene here in Australia, in that it's much easier for independents and smaller parties to get representation in the Senate in particular, but also in the House of Reps, because a vote for a third party is not a wasted vote here in Australia. If the person you're voting for doesn't get in, then your preference flows on to whoever you want it to flow to if you number your votes properly, or you can allow the person you're voting for or their party to distribute preferences. And that means there's a lot more diversity of voices in our parliament than there is in Congress.
Now, the religious thing again. Why is it that Christians who should be more godly and more caring about people, why is it that they seem to be the ones that fall more on the right and are more for the types of things that someone like Donald Trump does, as far as being bigoted?
It actually ties back to what happened in 1980, because what the Ronald Reagan campaign was the turning point. And what happened was they convinced the voters that abortion was the single most important issue. They're murdering babies.
So it's propaganda.
And, and so it became a litmus test. If you are not anti-abortion, then you are, we can't vote for you because you want to murder babies. And it doesn't matter what you say on any other issue. This is the only issue that matters. And it still is that way to the right, to the Christian right. That is the only issue that matters to them. They're still convinced that abortion is murder.
Yep.
Even though Yahweh turned out to be the biggest abortionist in history with the drowning of all those pregnant women during the worldwide flood.
Well, it's okay for God to destroy babies because he's the giver of life. He can take it too. He has that right. And yeah.
But the abortion issue becoming that politically pushed, again, was deliberate. There were a range of studies in the 1970s that showed that when the conservative Republicans were losing electability, their own projections showed that they would become unelectable on demographic shifts. And so they did a lot of focus groups on issues that could shift people's mind. And practically nothing worked because most people didn't want to vote for rich people who were taking their money. They found the one issue that could shift votes was abortion. It was the only thing that came out of their focus groups that showed that they could actually get people to change their vote. So that prompted that connection of the rich with the Christian right, because they viewed it as their one plank of getting back electability. Lots of other things were tried, but it did become that one electoral stick that they found worked from then on. Because if you go back to the early 70s, the Southern Baptists were fine with abortion. It's a fairly recent phenomenon that churches are anti-abortion. It was only strongly a teaching in the Catholic Church. Mm-hmm. All the Protestant church didn't have any problem with abortion.
Even the Catholic Church didn't have it until I think it was until the Enlightenment. Because up until that time, I know I was looking something up and I saw that Augustine said that life began at quickening.
Yes, so historically it's had a very varied treatment in the church, and sometimes and lots of churches have been fine with it. It's been a standard teaching for a fair while in Catholicism, but up until the 1970s, there were a few other Christian churches who had any problem. In fact, some Christian churches specifically gave out guidelines saying that it was required in certain circumstances for social functioning. But they've all changed now. There's very few Christian churches that would not be strongly anti-abortion now.
There's a theme here of protecting children. You see it in the anti-abortion activism, and it's also come out really strongly in QAnon. The whole QAnon thing took off because they were talking about the Democrats' leaderships being pedophiles and sacrificing children for their blood for life-extending cures. And so that the whole QAnon movement took off on the basis of protecting children. And that's why they're also head up about Epstein now. And the cognitive dissonance that's happening in the MAGA crowd now with the known pedophile Epstein apparently being protected by Trump, because Trump needs to protect himself because he was known to associate with Epstein.
Yes.
It's kind of mind-boggling as to how they can continue to support Trump.
It's crazy that they're struggling to cope with that at the moment, and the amount of, as you say, cognitive dissonance, the amount of excuses that they're trying to come up with to steer it in a way that makes Trump look okay. and they're making up stories that it was Biden and Hillary Clinton that invented it, and like they're just they're coming up with all different ways of trying to save their dear leader, Trump, from it, and it's just crazy. Yeah, look, it's mind-boggling. The lengths they'll go to try and protect him is frightening. Like that's a cult, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
that's the other term that gets used with MAGA or MAGA, however you would say that. Is that it's a cult, and really, when you hear the way that they go on to protect Donald Trump, you would have to agree that yes, that's one of the fundamental things, isn't it, with a cult, is that your leader can do anything, and then the followers will stick by him, he, she, no matter what.
Like you said earlier, Kelly, he could shoot someone in Times Square and they'd still vote for him.
Yeah.
Maybe this pedophilia thing will stick. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a big thing at the moment. It's definitely, as I look, I keep referring back to Kyle Kalinske. It's just there are a few channels that I trust, but he's one in particular, and he seems to be talking a lot about it at the moment. And it's right out there. Donald Trump's trying to hide from it. He's trying to push it away and say, look, it's not important. Why? What are we talking about this guy for? He died a few years ago. He's trying to brush it away under the carpet. He's doing everything he can to do that, and it's not happening moment. So
I don't think anything will unseat Trump or derail his agenda as long as his heart is beating. I think the only thing that will derail his agenda is if he has a heart attack, he is obese, if he has some kind of health problem.
Yeah, which he does apparently have some kind of a health problem. I haven't watched those videos. I don't know exactly what it is, but
it's not serious.
It's not something to do with swollen ankles.
Mm-hmm.
But who will step in to take his place?
Someone's mentioned something about J.D. Vance before, and he would probably be the obvious person to step in and do that job.
I don't think it'll happen. I don't see it happening. He just doesn't have Trump's charisma.
No.
He doesn't have the following, and I think the cats and people are eating the cats and dogs, and the rumors about him having sex with his couch are going to come back and bite him.
Yeah. Yep.
Yes. So Trumpism is a problem for America, but I think you'll probably squeak through. I think Trump will do all sorts of damage to your institutions and your way of life for a while. But I don't think America will fall on this. I think it will be many years to address all the damage he's done. But I think it will be Trumpism will be a bit of a phase. It might mean there'll be authoritarian elements of government that are hard to stamp out. But I don't think he'll end up with a whole scale or revolt and bring down the society, because it is that small proportion of the society that really loves him. Mm-hmm. So it is a problem, but I think you'll squeak through okay and eventually come back to a more even keel in terms of political balance.
Or hopefully a complete revolution. Maybe it has the opposite effect, and people rebel against it. Sorry?
It could bring people out to vote.
Vote, yeah.
Election until they forget. Les, you were about to say something.
No. Oh, only I think you picked it up anyway when I said if Trump goes, who will step in his place to keep the Trump agenda alive? Who's got that? Who will step in, and are they capable of doing that? And I think Trump's greatest political strength is literally in his bullying. And I mean that with all seriousness. The way he can squash opposition just through going in full bore against that person.
Utter shamelessness in doing that and saying whatever he thinks needs to be said in order to get his own way. Utter shamelessness. I think there can't be too many people who would have that degree of bravado and shamelessness and be able to command the following the way he does.
And narcissism.
Yeah, I guess that's what it takes to be able to lead people in that way, doesn't it? Is to literally just not care. I mean, it is essentially all about him.
That was tried here in Australia in the lead up to the last election by Peter Dutton, the leader of the Conservative Party here, ironically named the Liberals. It's very confusing. Our Conservative Party leader tried to bring in elements of Trumpism. He didn't have the charisma to keep people on side, and a number of differences in Australian culture and electoral law meant that he was wiped out. His party was completely wiped out of office, wiped out of the electoral map on this. The worst result that they'd had in many decades.
I think something similar happened in Canada as well.
Yes. And it was a reaction against what people were seeing Trump was doing in the United States, but it was also related to those differences that we have here in Australia that we mentioned earlier: better education, preferential voting, and a less strongly Christian electorate.
Yeah, but I guess the only frightening thing is how many more Peter Duttons are out there, and maybe ones with more charisma. That this is a fear of the success of Trumpism. The fact that he's had 2 terms in office, he's in the middle of the second term. Is it?
And I think that is an interesting question. I mean, we do have advantages here, all those advantages that have been mentioned. We are much less, we're more resistant to that authoritarian push.
At the moment, yes.
But it doesn't mean we couldn't elect a fairly authoritarian government. It would be harder here, and so I think we're saved a bit by our political system. But we still have to watch out for it. I mean, everyone has to be aware of the issues and how valuable a society like ours is, and not move down that authoritarian bent.
Yeah.
Which comes back to human nature a bit. I mean, human nature is broad. People are different. And people have different needs for security. And you find, and the tests tend to show that some people do need more feeling of security. They cope less well with change. They like to be more instructed in life and not have to cope with a whole range of issues. And those people are more likely to want authoritarian type government. So humanists have to live in a society that will have people that would like to live differently from us. And we have to find a way of, if we want fulfillment for all humans, we have to allow that some people will have different wishes for how to live their lives and be governed.
Sure. It's
how you do that, how you get a governance structure that suits all types of people who want different levels of security or freedom. Some people like us are going to want as much freedom as possible. We want freedom of speech. We want to live our lives as we see fit. But that doesn't suit all people, and so we will have to, in a future sense, an ideal governance has to make all people comfortable. The people who want that level of freedom, which will allow for those people as well. We don't want them to elect an authoritarian, but we also want them to live comfortably with us in a pluralistic society.
It's the golden rule, isn't it? It's like, as long as whatever you're doing is not affecting anybody else. So if authoritarians want happiness and the government wants to please them, then I don't know how you do that, because they want to have control over other people. That's what authoritarianism is. So that's
been the historical challenge.
For humanists, it's not, because we care about other people and want to see good things happen to them. Immigrants, trans people, whatever. We care about our fellow humans and want to see good things and don't want to control their lives, want them to have freedoms. Whereas authoritarians are the opposite. They want to control you and get you to do things the way that they like it. So I don't know that you can please those kind of people. They just have to change their attitude. I mean, there's no other way around it, is there?
But that's the historical problem, and And that's what's happening in the US at the moment. That proportion of the society has managed to get a leader they like.
Yeah.
So it's something that the societies have to deal with. On a related issue, which gets back to this bit of worldview, and something I'd like to ask Kelly about, is this issue of how that part of society, particularly religious people, feel that atheists can't be moral. This view that if you're not religious, you have to be immoral. You can't come up with a decent ethical principle because you don't have this big stick of hell hanging over you, so you can't look out for other people, which to me is a bit of a strange point of view, that you need the stick of punishment to be a good person. But this other but an atheist who doesn't have the punishment hanging over him, they're just going to look after themselves. They can't be a moral person. So I'm always surprised a bit when I encounter that, even though it's quite common, and even in Australia. I'm wondering, Kelly, how often do you see that in the US?
We see it all the time. The Christian people thinking that atheists can't be moral people, and the problem is that Christians are highly encouraged not to associate with anyone who isn't Christian. And so most Christians don't know any atheists. And so the only picture they have of what an atheist is or what an atheist thinks is what their pastors tell them. I had the good fortune of having family members that were atheist. And one thing I even mentioned in the video that I just released a few hours ago is that I had an uncle that fit that description to a T. I mean, he was the angry atheist that was obnoxious all the time. But I also had an aunt that was absolutely the opposite. She was a truly selfless person. And, she was a humanist by every every bit of the definition. And for me, there was always the cognitive dissonance of my aunt doesn't meet the criteria of what an atheist is, and yet she's an atheist. And that always was a bit of an issue for me. But most people don't have that because they don't know any atheists.
I just wanted to ask, because it is actually 12 o'clock here, so the stream's gone for an hour. So I guess we should sort of finish it up soon. But I wanted to ask how you went with your protest, because when I first spoke to you about coming on to do the show, yes, you said, yes, that's fine, but I've got two things that I have to do. And one of those was a protest. I thought you said the ARC protest. I assumed that was the ARC encounter, Can-Ham thing. And
that went very well. The one thing that was a little disappointing was the ARC encounter didn't send anyone our way this year. In years past, they always have. So it was just us out there. The only thing that even came close to being controversial was there were two guys in trucks that would drive by a couple of times and rev their engines at us. But there was a police officer. In fact, it was the local sheriff that stopped by twice to ask how we were doing, and he'd heard about the guys driving by and revving their engines, and said, "Okay, well, if it happens again, let me know. I'll go after them." The local population was very supportive of us.
Yeah,
because the local population does not like that ARC. It is. They have to pay 2% of their income to support that ARC, and they do not like that ARC.
Sorry, I think I need some explanation here. What is the ARC that you're talking about?
The ARC is Ken Ham, who we would like to send him back to Australia. Thank you very much.
He's Australian. He
is Australia, but the Australian people weren't having his bullshit. So he came to the United States, where he found the audience to be much more receptive to him. And in Kentucky, he built a life-size replica of Noah's Ark. And he is a young earth creationist. He has a huge following. He has incredible financial backing. And he sells a lot of homeschool material. So a huge percentage of people who homeschool in the United States use his materials to teach their children.
Dear.
And in these materials, it tells children that science isn't real, or at least evolution isn't real, that the earth is only 6,000 years old. There was a literal global flood. The world was created in 6 days, 6 literal days by God. And before the fall of Adam and Eve, nothing ever died. Death was brought into the world by Adam and Eve eating the magical fruit, although they would never use the word magical. Yeah, and this is his position, and he's built this life-size ark, and he's got a creation museum there, and he's getting ready to build a Tower of Babel as well. And
Wow.
the number of people, 1/3 of the people in this country believe that stuff. A third of the people in this country believe that the earth is less than 10,000 years old. That's crazy.
That's crazy. It's just anti-science. And Kenham has his museum, doesn't he? The Young Earth Creationist Museum as well, where they have dinosaurs mingling with people.
Yep. He believes the Flintstones was real. Yeah.
So but I read he had to make a claim on his insurance policy after there were some local floods there and there was damage to the ark.
Yep.
So his ark can't withstand flooding. Great.
They originally wanted to have real animals on the ark, but it could not be done. Even with modern ventilation and airflow, they could not sufficiently ventilate the ark to have the animals on board the ark. So there's stuffed animals on the ark.
Yes, interesting. Anyway, so there was a decent turnout for that.
Yes, there was. Next year's is supposed to be even better because next year is going to be the 10th anniversary of the ark. The Tri-State Humanist Society is the main sponsor of the event, although this year they were not. They were only in the background, and Kentucky Atheist was the one that really put this on. But Tri-State Humanists said that they're going to put it on next year, but that probably will be the last time. They want to do one last time for the 10-year anniversary.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. That's good. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Yes. So we're an hour and 8 minutes in. So I guess we should finish up. Did you want to finish up, Marianne?
I saw David was just about to say something.
Sorry. Go ahead.
I just thought I'd mention that in the previous issue of our Humanist magazine in Australia, we had an article on young Earth creationism and the various scientific ways of pushing back on their rather facile arguments.
I think we ought to deport Ken Ham. I mean, isn't he?
We don't want him. We don't want him, Kelly.
Well,
he's gone to your place. You got to keep him now.
We could send him to El Salvador.
Yeah, maybe he can go there. Yeah, we definitely don't want Ken back. That's all right. You can keep him, and he seems quite happy over there. So
yes, he is very happy here.
All right. We are past time, as Brian has said, so I want to say thank you so much for coming and talking with us today, Kelly. Really appreciate you traveling all the way from Alabama for this. It's been fantastic having you on our chat today. And thank you, Brian, for organising this, and Les and David for coming to chat with Kelly as well. If you're listening in and you want to know what humanism is, you haven't really dived into humanism yet, I'm giving my bi-monthly talk, What is Humanism?, from 2 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time today. You can find the details for that on our meetup group. If you Google Humanist Australia, you'll find us. All right, thanks very much for coming, everyone. Good to see you, and see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Use your head, use your eyes, know yourself, realize, understand, and empathize. We could learn to fill the world with love.